There's something electric about Anita Blake the moment she steps onto a comic page. That quiet confidence, the edge in her voice, the way she carries a world full of monsters on her shoulders like it's just another Tuesday. She's not built like a typical Marvel hero because she didn't come from Marvel at all. She walked into Marvel from her own universe. Laurel K. Hamilton's world of necromancy, vampires, and old bones that refused to stay buried. And Marvel decided to throw the doors open wide. When Marvel launched Anita Blake, Vampire Hunter: Guilty Pleasures in 2006, it wasn't just an adaptation, it was an invitation. And in those pages, Anita's voice hit like cold steel, sharp, grounded, and completely unapologetic. We meet her as a raised-in-the-fire kind of woman, someone who spent so long dealing with monsters that she barely flinches anymore. She's an animator, a necromancer capable of dragging the dead back into the world of the living, a power that would break most people long before they ever mastered it. But Anita, she harnessed it. You can almost feel the tension in Guilty Pleasures, issue 1, as Anita steps into the vampire nightlife of St. Louis. This isn't the glamorous, brooding, romantic vampire myth. This is political, dangerous, calculated. Vampires are legal here, and Anita's job is to keep that fragile line between supernatural and human from shattering completely. It's a responsibility she never asked for but takes on anyway, because if she doesn't do it, who will? The power she carries isn't the kind that makes her feel invincible. It makes her feel responsible. And that's what gives Anita Blake her weight. She's a hunter who understands exactly how close she stands to the edge. One of the things Marvel captures beautifully in the comics is the way Anita balances her own humanity against the darkness she works in. From Anita Blake, The Laughing Corpse, Animator, issue 1, to The Laughing Corpse, Necromancer, issue 3, her control over the dead isn't presented as a superpower. It's treated like a burden, a skill with consequences, something that constantly threatens to unravel if she lets her guard down for even a moment. You can see that clearly in the way she talks about raising the dead. The ritual, the circle, the blood, the price she pays every time she steps into that role. She isn't cold, she's careful. She knows exactly what she's capable of, and that understanding shapes her entire moral compass. And then there's the vampires, especially Jean-Claude. Marvel doesn't shy away from portraying their complicated dynamic. In Guilty Pleasures, issue 6, their relationship pulls tight like the string of a drawn bow. Jean-Claude is mysterious, seductive, impossibly patient, everything Anita resists and fights against because she refuses to lose herself in someone else's orbit. But the tension between them is a storm. It's emotional, explosive, and never cheapened. What makes Anita so compelling is that she absolutely refuses to be owned by her power, her trauma, or her complicated love life. She has this fierce, stubborn, beautifully human core that grounds her in a world full of supernatural chaos. Even when she's facing creatures that should swallow her whole, she stands there with a gun in one hand and a necromancer's blood on the other, refusing to apologize for the strength it takes to survive. Marvel's interpretation of her world pushes everything forward, louder, darker, more visual. When you flip through The Laughing Corpse, Executioner, issue 4, you feel the horror crawl up your spine. The panels stretch wide with decayed limbs, broken morgues, undead giants crashing through walls, and in the center of it all, Anita, sweating, bleeding, and still fighting. Because that is her nature, she doesn't quit. She doesn't run, she confronts. But beneath all that grit, there's something deeper, something almost heartbreaking. Anita Blake is a character built on choices that cost her pieces of herself. Every vampire she kills, every corpse she raises, every monster she faces leaves a mark. She carries those scars like an invisible armor, quiet but heavy. In Marvel's world, where cosmic gods rewrite universes and mutants fling lightning into the sky, Anita's power looks small at first. But the truth hits you slowly. Few heroes carry as much emotional weight as she does. Her battles may not shake galaxies, but they tear into the soul. They force her to walk that razor's edge between who she is and what the world demands she become. And that's why readers connect with her so fiercely. She's brave because she's scared. She fights because someone has to. She stays human because losing that humanity is the one thing she refuses to sacrifice. But Anita's story only gets darker and more intense from here. The monsters, the power struggles, the blood magic, the relationships that reshape her life. And Marvel pushes every one of those threads to their breaking point. The deeper Anita goes into Marvel's adaptation of her world, the more the shadows around her start to move. Every arc chips away another layer of her armor. Every confrontation forces her to reevaluate who she is when the lights go out and the monsters start whispering her name. In The Laughing Corpse Necromancer Issue 5, there's a moment where Anita stands alone in an empty hallway, gun still warm in her hands. She's surrounded by bodies, raised, shattered, fallen, and for a breath she's not the hunter or the necromancer or the executioner. She's just a human being trying to catch her breath. That's the kind of raw humanity Marvel let bleed onto the page. Those tiny pauses between war zones. Those rare seconds where she questions if she's becoming one of the very things she fights. But Anita never lets the darkness win. She wrestles with it, chokes it into submission, and drags herself back into the fight, over and over again. Marvel's adaptation gives us a closer, almost uncomfortable look at the moral tightrope she walks. She isn't simply killing monsters, she's doing it according to laws, politics, and twisted supernatural hierarchies. Vampires have civil rights now. Zombies are evidence. Ghosts carry testimonies. Necromancy is a regulated profession, and Anita is stuck in the middle of all of it. In Guilty Pleasures Issue 9, she's forced into a corner by Nikolaos, the ancient vampire who looks like a child but carries a monster's heart. The tension in those scenes is unforgettable. Nikolaos isn't just a villain. She's the embodiment of everything Anita hates about the undead. Cruelty masquerading as beauty, violence wrapped in elegance, immortality with no conscience. And when Nikolaos pushes Anita to her breaking point, Marvel shows us something essential about Blake. She isn't fearless, she's furious. Fearless people die early. Anita survives because she knows exactly what fear tastes like: metallic, bitter, real. She just refuses to let it rule her. Her inner conflicts intensify in arcs like The Laughing Corpse, Animator Issue 2, where she raises the dead with more power than she intended. The way Marvel portrays this moment is chilling. You see her hands tremble afterward. You see the horror in her eyes as she realizes how thin the line is between control and catastrophe. These are the scenes that turn readers into lifelong fans because Anita is never invincible, she's accountable. And that's so much rarer than raw power. Then there's the emotional battlefield, the relationships that push and pull her in ways bullets and claws never could. Jean-Claude with his velvet smile and centuries of manipulation. Richard, the werewolf who wants something real and normal even though nothing about their lives is remotely normal. Marvel leans into this triangle not as a romantic fantasy, but as a crucible, a source of friction that keeps breaking Anita open just enough to reveal the person she's terrified to admit she is. In Guilty Pleasures Issue 10-12, Anita and Jean-Claude's tension snaps into something undeniable. The way Marvel frames their scenes is cinematic. Candlelight, shadows, the weight of power dynamics shifting every time one of them speaks. Jean-Claude isn't just a vampire. He's politics, seduction, danger, and vulnerability all twisted together. And Anita hates that she understands him so well. But she also cares, and that terrifies her even more. Richard, on the other hand, is the heartbeat she keeps trying to hold on to. The glimpse of something simple, a life where monsters don't claw at the windows every night. But Richard has his own demons, literally and figuratively. Marvel's pages show it clearly. He's strong, loyal, and good-hearted, but he lives with a beast inside him. A beast he fears. A beast that cracks his relationship with Anita every time it surfaces. In The Laughing Corpse Executor Issue 5, Anita struggles not with a monster in front of her, but with the man beside her. It's personal, painful, tense, and the readers feel every ounce of it. Because this story was never just about vampires or necromancy. It's about the impossible balance of love, power, and the cost of choosing between them. Anita's world becomes even more tangled when she realizes she's not just raising the dead, she's rising within supernatural politics. Factions want her, fear her, need her. Her power grows, her reputation spreads. And with every arc, Marvel pushes her deeper into a world where morality isn't black and white. It's red, dark red, the kind that stains. But through every supernatural showdown, every internal conflict, every forced alliance, one thing stays true. Anita Blake never stops fighting for the people who can't fight for themselves. That's what makes her dangerous, that's what makes her heroic. But that's also what makes her a target. And as her enemies rise, older, stronger, hungrier, her past begins to claw its way back toward her. The next chapter of her story doesn't just challenge her skills. It threatens her very identity. The shadows that surround Anita Blake aren't just enemies, they're echoes. Echoes of her past, echoes of the choices she never wanted to make, echoes of the monsters she swore would never define her. But the truth is, Every battle she survives drags a little more darkness into her soul. And Marvel leans into this beautifully in the later arcs, especially in the intensity of The Laughing Corpse, Necromancer Issue 6, where Anita faces the brutal consequences of her escalating power. There's a moment in that issue, subtle, almost silent, where Anita stands over a corpse she didn't mean to raise. The horror isn't in the creature itself, it's in her face. In that instant, Marvel shows us a woman who's starting to fear her own reflection. She knows that necromancy feeds on emotion, on instinct, on the buried storms inside her. And that means the stronger she gets, the closer she edges toward a point of no return. But Anita doesn't break. She bends, she adapts. She makes choices that other hunters would collapse under. Her relationship with power evolves into something far more complex than Marvel's usual leveled-up hero arc. In Guilty Pleasures, Deluxe Edition, 2010, Marvel adds narrative weight to her growth. Her aura gets stronger. Her control over zombies becomes sharper, more immediate. But with every gain, Marvel forces her to confront harder questions. What happens when you're the only one who can make the impossible choices? What happens when your power stops feeling like a gift and starts feeling like destiny? In Anita's world, destiny is dangerous. And it's in this danger that Marvel crafts some of her most emotionally charged scenes. Take her bonds, Jean-Claude and Richard. These aren't love triangles, they're fault lines. Jean-Claude pulls her into a world of immortal politics where every kiss is a negotiation and every moment of trust is a gamble. Richard, meanwhile, shows her what love could look like if the world were kinder, but the world is. Their lives are battlefields, and Richard's refusal to fully accept the monster inside him becomes one of the most heartbreaking tensions in the comics. Marvel uses those relationships not to soften Anita, but to sharpen her, to show that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's fuel. When Anita chooses to rise against every threat, be it vampires, zombies, shapeshifters, or factions trying to use her, she doesn't do it because she enjoys the fight. She does it because somewhere beneath all the grit and exhaustion, she still believes in protecting the innocent. That belief is her superpower, and it's tested brutally in the later chapters of Marvel's adaptations, where older vampires challenge her, necromancers try to bind her, and supernatural crime spirals out of control around her. In The Laughing Corpse Executioner Issue 6, the final showdown hits like a hammer. The undead rampage through the streets. Innocents fall. And Anita stands between chaos and survival, battered, bleeding, but absolutely unbroken. That's Anita Blake, strength not measured by cosmic explosions or reality-warping feats, but by a relentless refusal to give up her agency. No matter how many monsters stalk her, how many lovers break her heart, or how many nights she goes to sleep knowing she might become the thing she hunts. She chooses humanity anyway. That is why she matters. That is why fans gravitate to her. And that is why Marvel's adaptation of Anita Blake stands as one of the most emotionally grounded supernatural sagas in modern comics. A story where the real battle isn't between hunter and monster, but between fear and identity. And Anita Blake, she walks that line every single day, facing the darkness with nothing but grit, fire, and her own fragile humanity. Whether she's standing in a morgue, surrounded by the dead she raised, or staring down a vampire who wants to own her, or gripping her guns as the world tips into chaos, Anita doesn't blink. She rises. She endures. She survives. And that is why her legend continues page after page, arc after arc, decade after decade. A necromancer, a hunter, a woman forged in violence but driven by compassion, a character who challenges the idea of what a hero even looks like in a world of shadows. And if you're brave enough to follow her into that darkness, you'll understand exactly why Anita Blake has become one of Marvel's most unforgettable crossovers. A storm wrapped in leather and determination, carving her way through a world full of teeth, blood, and impossible choices.